Right, just filled the base of that plastic with Tamenia. Now that's not a perfect covering, but it's the first layer. Once that's dry, sand, clean it out. You'll see where there's imperfections, and then I start troweling it in. I usually use a X-Acto blade, a standing off blade, just dragging across the surface, keeps it smooth. But it's a case of 2 or 3 coats in this instance. Alright guys, morning. It's currently just past 8 and it's about 30 degrees, so I'm going to get this done and get out of here. Now, the other day I did the filling of the hole with the melted Nerf plastic. Worked well, nice join. Then I put the Tamenia putty in and it seems to have shrunk and pulled it away, which is really, really annoying. And this is screwed together too, and it was even tighter yesterday. What I'm going to do is save myself a heap of trouble, and I'm going to do what's called a UFM by soldiers, an unauthorized field modification. Okay, the whole story behind this weapon is it's a plasma rifle, so it's quite hot. That's why they give you the extra handhold. Well, it's not quite enough, so what I'm going to do, the trooper in question is going to wrap some sort of thermal bandage around this lower part. That'll save me having to deal with that. So I'm going to have to get a bandage and dip it in white glue and wrap it around, and it'll dry hard and everything will be done. So before I do that, I want to deal with this hole. And because it's all going to be wrapped, I'm not going to kill myself. I've just cut myself a bit of plastic. I've scored down the centre almost all the way through. This is 2mm thick, and I'm going to use some epoxy glue to glue that there and there, lining up the centre line with the centres of this. So once it's dry, only put glue on either side at the moment, and a little bit there. Once it's dry, a couple of scores, click, come apart. So I've got a nice reinforced bit there. So that'll just make it a bit stronger, and then the bandage will go around it all, hide it all, and I can clean off a few of these letters. I won't have to do much of it. And that bit's done. Oakley dokley, done a fair bit there. Got that part glued on, cut off the rail that was there, and even taken off the support with the screw in it. So that finishes there, that finishes there. Welcome back, fellow Nerf afflicted. Now, yesterday I put some araldite in that, taped it up, so I'm going to start by taking all this off. Oh, okay, that was written. So, using 24-hour araldite, this should be rock solid. Okie dokie. So there we pretty much go. So what I'm going to do now is sand this down with sandpaper over the edge. I went through it yesterday. So let's see what happens here. Yep, that's smoothing down nicely, so I'll get on with that. Get back to you when I'm done. Now I've just taken off the horrid Raptor Strike lettering with the drum, sanding drum, and I'm just cleaning it up now with different grades of sandpaper. Then what I'll do, I'll use wet and dry, and always use a reservoir of water to put your wet on. Don't stick your finger in your mouth, because the next time you do it you'll be putting plastic in your body, and there's enough plastic in our bodies as there is, just like the Pacific Ocean. So that'll be continual sand until those marks disappear, and what I'll do is I'll just put a bead of Tamenia putty around the edge just to fill up the tiny little gaps there, and then once that's done I can score that, pull it apart. Right, just finished sanding off the letters. I've masked around here just so when I run the Tamenia putty around the edge I don't make too much of a mess for myself. This makes it a lot easier, I think. So, tape off. Right, so it's a lot neater looking. That'll take about its usual 6 or 8 hours to dry. So when that's dry, come back, sand, and then it looks like I'm up to the next step of fitting it, which will be good, which means I'm getting close to finishing. Now I've just been working on final finishing of this piece to glue it on, especially this area here. It's been about 20 minutes. Couldn't work out why it wasn't going on, and then I realised there's a tiny little ridge here on this side which I'd cut something out, but I hadn't taken it out on the other side. As soon as I took that out, fine. Fits pretty much in place. I'm just, this, where I want it is also an issue. I've got to really think carefully. If I have it back like that way, it's pretty stable, and I've got a nice sort of merging there of those two bits. If I have it forward, I've got a little bit more room to glue on, but then I've got like a little notch there. So I think I'm going to do that, and I have to be very careful that the goo I stick in there to glue these two pieces together doesn't get on this. So what I think I'll do, I'll wrap some tape over that, because I have no idea what the goo glue is going to do to that, but being plastic and being that glue is basically acetone base, I don't want any disasters, not at this stage anyway. So what I'm planning to do is just put glue in the front areas this, so it just tacks onto there and there, and I have to allow for that screw hole. I think it's a screw hole, yes it is a screw hole, so I'll have to mark that on the orange and drill a hole through and everything to get that all sorted as well. And it's interesting, you can see the silver paint I put on has been rubbing off as I've been doing this, so I've been actually seeing contact points. First thing I have to do, I almost went ahead and glued this on, I forgot to score that and cut it in half, so I'll do that now. Shouldn't take long because it's already pre-scored. And I suppose once I've got this cut in half, I should take this in two pieces to make sure it comes apart. So this will lap dissolve, and suddenly I'll be going, there you go, it's cut. Here we go. And it's through. There we go. Couple of quick swipes with the back of the knife will just clean off that burr. Just do a little bit of test fitting here. By doing it this way I can actually see where my contacts are happening. That's going to go like that. So that goes right over there, so I can't get any glue on that end there, but I can underneath here and at the front here. So I can see where I need to put my goo glue. Now I have to be aware that that part is fixed to that, and that's my battery door, so I can put great big globs along here. Get a marker, put that on there, and mark where the end of that is. So I know that area there is where my goo glue goes. Okay, so big glob there, and this area. So that's where I'm going to put some goo glue there. Tiny bit on the front here, trying not to go near the joint, and a big lump right across there on both sides. So I'm going to screw this thing back together and whack some glue in. Now I can also put some goo glue in the corners there, which I'll remind myself to do. Let's get on with hopefully not a disaster. Very big lumps of glue, but I've only just put acetone in this, which was probably a mistake. It's a bit too watery, and it's already gone over that joint. God, I'm clever. Not too much, thank goodness. Now what I'm going to do on the back end is I'm going to put the glue on the bottom strap, which is what I'll call it from now on, the strap. And okay, let's try and be a genius, eh? Oh, God. Right, now from experience this will set up pretty quickly. You see I've got a smear there which I'm going to have to clear up, which is not a great problem. Is just shoveling it back towards the join, using it as a filler as well. There we go. Now, as I said, it's been less than 2 minutes since I've glued that, I'd say. There we go. So there's my handle. And there's my handle not falling off on my bottom strap. So I am now committed to being stuck with this. Play on words. That's going to glue, so when that's glued it's finishing off, gently grinding, epoxy painting to fill in the gaps, blend it all in, front and back. Now all the hoses and things I'm going to put in here is not an issue because I can do them when the gun's apart. And also the magazine. What I've decided to do is I'm going to make a surround for this that surround for the magazine that can go on there and make it look like a power pack. So this will be like coloured like the body, this bottom part, and it'll fit in there. But the top part will be, you know, I'll paint that metallics and U-Butte things and everything and whiz bang. And so it's a plasma gun, so it's like an energy cell. There you go, an energy cell. Better idea. Hello fellow Nerf afflicted. Last time I was taking lots and lots and lots and lots of care to get this glued on right, and it's glued on, it's really hard, it's nice and strong. But with a, what has to be said, a almost Machiavellian level of genius-ness. Remember this? Yeah. I glued right across there when that's supposed to be open. So what I've got to do is cut through that. Luckily I've got my little X-Acto saw and I only have to cut through that part because that's the only place the glue is. Really, really clever of me. I mean, you'd have to agree. I mean, those of you who think I'm really clever and a genius, you can put a vote here. But those who think I'm just a dumbass, one here. Okay, we'll stop that. Critics. I'm wondering if at some stage I put a screw in this that's down there which I can't see and I've glued it together. There doesn't appear to be, because this one has, oh hang on, there is a damn screw hole, yep. So it's got, I just can see this little tiny little semicircle just here. But that will be easy to get to. I'll just grind a bit of muck out with a drum sander so I can get into there. Right, now I've had to grind through both the orange and the blue plastic. Could be, yeah, I think I have left a screw in there. Is that genius or what? The thing is, a little bit of goo that's there, it's keeping a captive screw, so I think I'll just leave it like that. Now that that end's come apart, I've noticed that this end isn't it, and I might have the same problem down here. Luckily I've got half a dozen long shots so I can tell if I've left a screw under there, and it looks like I bloody have to. So that screw hole has to be right below that one. Let's see if we'll work out where this screw is. So from that line comes straight down towards it, so I'll measure from that corner. It's about 20 mil. So it should be about there. Okay, so I'm just going to go straight in with this grinder and drill a round hole. Boy. There we go. 2 parts. Now I'm going to use epoxy plaster down here because it's a bit weak. And what I'm going to do is, now that I've got it off the gun, I can actually work on it a bit better. You can see how it sticks out there a bit much. So I can grind that down a bit just to curve it in. And then I can epoxy putty from the inside by drilling holes through the blue. Oh, I can't put any epoxy putty in there because that's where that stop goes. So through here and along the top here. The problem, I think, with epoxy putty is that they say you have to work quickly. Well, you don't have to work that quickly. 10 minutes will give me plenty of working time to fill this in with a bit of epoxy putty. What I'm going to do first is drill a series of holes along the edge there So when it's pushed through, it will come through and I'll be able to press it down on this side. So there'll be like, it'll lock it together. It won't just form a bond on the outside, it'll actually lock both bits together. So I'll do that there and along here. Okay, I've taken off a little bit of the part that protruded out to help with the blending in. Now my little trick of drilling holes along there and pushing the putty in from both sides ain't going to work because I can't put any putty in this area, which is all this area. Can't do anything there, can't do anything there because it's still in this open area that this the buttstock goes into. So what it is, so not being able to put too much putty on the inside, I've cut some pieces out of an old battery tray and I'm simply going to glue them like so. I hope you can see that. And that should provide enough strength while I'm puttying the outside to support it. So I'll glue those in. So the usual procedure, bit of acetone in the cap, the bottle somewhere else so it doesn't get knocked over. Now I've cut out the part that has the ridge in it, the top edge, so that'll act as like a foot that it can sit on. And I'm just going to give it a quick sand so there's no muck where I want the glue to start melting it. There we go. Now that's going to soften the plastic, but it's still the goo glue that's going to do the job. Careful not to get any glue goo on the join because that would be bad. So that sits below the edge, so it's not going to stop the two halves coming together. And I'll just quickly do the other side and get this buttoned up. So as I said before, they're not going to dry in any sort of crooked or stressed way. What I'm going to do before I put them together, not glove, I'll use a bit of paper. Glove might melt into it, but a bit of paper won't. So I'll just put that there like so. Screw this back together, everything in place. Okay, so I'm just putting in the screws all around the area I want just to dry without twisting, so this is just going to hold it. Alright guys, sorry about that, camera failure, so battery failure. So, okay, alright, I've got this all screwed back together. This is screwed in this area at the corners. Now I'm going to do the filling of the builder's bog here, but first I'm going to mask the area because builder's bog isn't the neatest thing and I don't want to have too much cleanup. So, oaky dokie, time for the builder's bog, and luckily I've got some, not a lot, that hasn't gone dry. Okay, so this is your basic builder's epoxy putty, 50 parts fillers and 1 part hardener. Okay, so that's about a tablespoon, if that. An old trick from my arts days. This is an old tile, good for paint mixing and mixing goos and gunks as long as you clean it off straight away. Acrylic paint, you can just let it dry off there, chuck it in the water, it'll just soak off. Alright, 50 to 1. I hope I've got some hardener. Yeah, there we go. That's more than enough hardener, I'd say. Does it tell me working time? Okay, so you've got to mix it for 1 minute and then you've got 6 to 8 minutes work time. And that looks pretty uniform anyway. So what I've got is an old flat bladed Nerf, which will help me put it in a lot more controlled. I'm going to try and put it in a little proud so I can just sand it down. There's a lot in there, and it's a triangular shaped cavity, so I use a triangular shaped blade to get in there. Now, I've always been one for minimal sanding, and this case is no exception. That's why I'm taking the time and trouble, even though it's starting to go off, to smooth it out as much as I can, so I've got much less work later. See, this is now at the stage where it's like the actual epoxy putty. It's very plasticine-like, so I might still try and see if I can use some down here. So the last thing I want now that that's starting to set off is it to hold the tape down, so I'm actually going to pull the masking off now. So trying to get a bit of tape off that's stuck under a bit of rock hard putty is not a lot of fun. And I've also got these issues I have to deal with, but those little splodges where it's got in that recess I can just cut out when it's dry. It won't be an issue. Let the rest of it set off. Now I'm going to fill this area on both sides and do the back. I'll do the back with the putty, but I'll do this with this builder's bog. So mask these areas off, ready to do the putty. And what I've got on this side to keep this hole open is an old punch. I'm just going to stick it in there. So I'm going to put the masking in and around as I can, best I can do. Definitely going to have to do some sanding around that area. Alright, there's a lot more there than I thought. Just roll it, fold it, roll it, fold it, roll it, fold it. And get a nice uniform colour very quickly. Right. Now, I'm going to try and do the same with the other putty, is smoothing it as much as I can. I'm trying at the same time to smooth it down so it sort of blends into the edges, but also leave it a bit high so the sanding will help it smooth in as well. That's all done. Call it a day, let it dry, and get on to a really fun sanding tomorrow. Morning Nerfers. Next day after all this filling. So what I'm going to do is get on with the sanding and cleaning up the really yucky part of the build. Let's get started. Two things this morning. First, I printed this plate here just to cover up that hole, and I thought it'd be clever and use the texture of the build plate on the printer to give it some texture, and it worked out reasonably well. Next I thought I'd repeat it here, and I printed these two, which are going to go, actually the one on the other side fits a little bit better. They're going to go in like that. So that'll hide a lot of the pipe work and stuff, but still allow you to see it. Got to clean them up, but this edge here is still interfering with it. It holds it too much of an angle. So I've got to pull the blaster apart and do some cutting and grinding there. And because I'm going to do that, I have an issue with a couple of screws, like this one here. This 10mm putty drying and pulling that apart has stripped this thread. So I'm going to show you how to repair, how I repair stripped threads. So let me get on with pulling this thing apart. Right guys, so here we have the beastie disassembled, and that's the screw hole that's giving me a problem. It's not biting in, and here's the screw, and you can put it in the hole and you can just push it in. So simple fix. Good old goo glue again, reasonably gooey and liquid, which is good. Bit of acetone just to wet the hole down, soften the plastic, get it ready for the application of the glue, help things stick a bit better. There we go. Some glue. You don't want much, obviously. See, that was absolutely a mess, but what I'm going to do is now I'm going to actually push the screw in and screw it down as far as it'll go. Well, not as far as it'll go, just tight enough. So now when that glue sets, I'll take the screw out. It'll just, the glue will stick to the screw, but it won't bond to it. It'll just be a bit of resistance. You'll hear a sharp click, it'll release. Then I will sand off the top surface of the mate. So they go together. Very simple, very straightforward. So I'm going to fit these things. Have to do some cutting in there, but what I need to do is put the battery door back in place, because that's part of the where it mates up against. And this is really finicky, this. There we go. Okay, battery door in place. Now, that sits on this ledge here. That's why I put these two little indentations for screws, but I can see it's already not going to work. So, I've got to see what's going on. What's getting in the way. Alright, so that bit of plastic down there and that bit of putty. So I've just got to do a little bit of cutting and grinding. Make some room. Okay, I've cut a bit of plastic off that was in the way. Get the burr off. Now, before I start grinding at anything else, I'm just going to do a test fit. Make sure I've got the right side. That's the right side. See how far that can slide forward. Now you can still see there's more plastic that's got to come off there. That's not a problem. Where's everything? Okay, so I can take that back to there, which is about where I wanted it. And I've just got clearance for that top screw. I might have to clear a bit of that off. Okay, so holding on of the piece, making sure it's in the right position, and drilling of the hole. Well, I'll be buggered. It worked. And what's the bet? I can't find 3 more of them.